everybody. My name is Chris Hebert. I'm with SideFX, and I'm very happy to be here with Oliver Markowski and Fuat Yüksel from RiarchitectFX in Germany. We're going to be talking about Solaris, Houdini's Solaris lighting, layout, and look dev context, and talking about their use of it and their transition to it over the last few years. They're certainly pioneers in the space, having been early adopters of Solaris, and use Houdini as much or more than any other studio we know. So we're really eager to see what they have to say. So let's start with introducing yourselves.
Hello, I'm Ollie. I'm the head of 3D at Rise. Started working at Rise 6 years ago as a CG soup, then turned into a VFX supervisor at one point on a feature animation movie called Rain Rider. After that, I decided to move away from production more into the pipeline end of our company. And by coincidence, at that time, we were looking for a head of 3D, and it turned out that people said Ollie would be a good fit, and that's where I'm now.
Hello everyone, my name is Fuat, I'm head of FX. I was doing effects ever since, and this is what I still want to do for the next, hopefully, decades. So together with the FX department, we are creating all the simulation-based stuff, everything Houdini-centric. I'm at Rise since 5 years almost now, and yeah, that's basically it from my side.
Excellent. So maybe you could start with kind of painting a picture of where Rise was with their pipeline traditionally and how that's developed into where we are now.
So yeah, as you already said, we were always like very Houdini-centric. So I think we implemented Houdini way before I started at Rise. I think it was in like 2013 already. So this was basically the first baby steps with Houdini, but by then we built up our pipeline around, like we always used Houdini for rendering in Mantra. Of course, we use Maya too, unfortunately. But it was always a pain in the ass, like all the data exchange and all that stuff. You had to write a lot of code. Everyone knows that, right? So you need to write code for each application to import, export stuff. Like the glue between the applications is really where you need a lot of code. And so our pipeline, like by the end, our now called legacy pipeline, had like tens of thousands of Python files, and it was a mess. So it was really not maintainable anymore. It's and then luckily USD came around and Solaris, and we started like the first development on the USD end started. I think it was in 2019, yeah.
Pre-development in 2019, and then like 2 years full R&D, 2.5 years later, and then 2021 we had said, now it's it.
By the end of 2020.
Yeah, exactly.
So we had 2 years of groundwork, but only with like one and a half developers, like not many. But yeah, it took a while also to figure everything out.
Well, and USD was in its infancy, really, and developing itself. So for you guys to be implementing it while it's coming up and growing and becoming something production ready was interesting times.
Yeah, USD is around since 2012, right? So it's already over a decade. So we're at year 11 now. So and also like why USD is such a great thing is because you get knowledge from Pixar of like so Pixar has like USD is the fourth installment or the fourth iteration of Pixar's scene description file system. So they had 3 approaches before, and they've learned a lot during those 3 approaches, and now we have basically 30 years of Pixar experience in a 4th installment. And it's not just their experience, it's also a lot of money that you got for free, right? Like, you have no idea how much money they put into the development, like how many man years of development that we could never afford that at Rise, right? So So what I said, we ended up with like tens of thousands of Python files where nothing really worked together. It was just a mess. And USD is just a very good concept and framework by itself. There's a lot of thought behind it.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of that, different people have asked, what is USD? Is it a file format? How would you describe USD?
It's a pipeline, basically. It's a framework, whatever. It's not a file format. It's that comes with it, but you could still reference Alembics, right? So you don't have to use the file format itself. But USD is really big. There is, like yesterday, I was mentioning, and I need to give a little shout out to Remedy Studios, or no, Remedy Entertainment, because one of their technical artists, Christopher Hebert, he released a book, the book of USD, on GitHub. I really encourage everyone to look that up, because this is a really great resource on an artist-friendly read on how USD works, explaining a lot. Just Google the book of USD, Remedy Entertainment. You find a page on GitHub. It's really great resource. I think. What was the question?
I think
is USD?
I think USD can be seen also like an assembly line of departments flowing into each other. So I think the biggest advantage of it, and this is what I love most about it, is it's just like it removed these I/O issues that we had for the last, I don't know how many decades, finally. You don't want to have I/O. You don't want to have stuff going from A to B, back to C, go to D. It's just like one assembly line where everything just flows in and everybody picks up the stuff from some other department. So it's a pipeline itself. It's an assembly line, and that's basically what it does. It comes with this name scene description, what it actually efficiently is in the end, but still it's like visually seen. It's more like a flow of data, which like gets passed through. Backtracking, all that kind of stuff. This is the main big thing, and which then in the end ends up being scalable. It makes stuff scalable, and I think these are the two, for me, the biggest, what I love most about it. Like, yeah.
That's clear, and we'll certainly talk about advantages that you guys have found along the way.
Yeah, the concept of layering, that's basically the secret ingredient of or the secret sauce of USD, and that's what it sets it apart from other frameworks. Is like everybody contributes one layer, like every department contributes their own layer, but even departments at the beginning of like as a build or in short work, an animator could start animating, then publish their animation layer, and 2 days later there was probably some FX folks involved that did some whatever destruction, and usually the tricky part before USD was like, how do we get the work from the downstream departments back to the animator, right? So in our case, you go from from Maya to Houdini, and back in the days we had a hard time getting all the work we've done in Houdini back to Maya, because it was usually really heavy. Then it's BGO most of the time. You don't want to export Alembic just for export's sake. So, and now you have USD, and your animator can, if he wants to, he can just, in our case, unmute the FX layer, because we mute the FX layer in Maya by default, because they tend to be heavy, and the viewport will just, or your experience or performance will just slow down. In this case, an animator could then just enable the FX layer and maybe fine-tune the animation to work a bit better together with FX. So you can go back and forth. You see the work of every department. You can see the work of every department at any point in time, wherever you are.
Exactly. And I think before that, like every VFX department was like ideally linearized, like linearly flowing, but it wasn't actually. If you would draw a flow chart, it would like go in circles and back then curves and everywhere and connections. But now with USD, it's really like this kind of flow pipe, which then goes in turn maybe, but it's one stream of data just going around all the time, like on an airport where you wait for your luggage, right? So it just goes around and everybody picks up stuff, puts the stuff there, and it's just one linearized workflow without any I/O finally after 2,516 years. So that's basically USD.
Excellent. Excellent answer. That's it really paints a picture of the advantages. So let's talk about, is there a specific project that you've used Solaris and USD on?
Not so. We had basically our first project that we've tried it. That was the so there's no specific project. That's the short answer, because we have made the leap of faith more or less to just flip the switch, delete everything old, and just go full on USD. So there's no intention of using it just in a specific project, obviously, because we're a small development team. We have to either maintain legacy pipeline or the new one. We cannot maintain two pipelines. I know from like historically at Pixar, even when they rolled out USD, they were running their legacy pipeline and the USD pipeline in parallel, just in case something breaks, so that they can still move forward on like the old pipeline. But this we couldn't afford. We just had a like clear cut, which was obviously that is one of the problems that everyone will be facing at one point, because of course after 10 years of development of our legacy pipeline, you had so many user tools, you had so many small features here and there, that you would need to port over to the new way of working, because it cannot just copy paste the code. It's just you have to re-implement the user tools, and this is something that was a little bit painful also on the side of the other software. It's just people were missing a lot of the tools that they're used to, and we needed to catch up quickly. And by now we have, I think we've managed to bring all the really cool user tools from the legacy pipeline over to the new USD pipeline, plus USD itself. So yeah.
Was there a specific date that you flipped the switch?
Yeah, November 2021. It's basically right after the Houdini 19 release. Yeah. So it's really we really deleted all the old stuff from our 18.5 pipeline and moved it into the 19.0, and just like it's a complete clear cut in the code base also for us. And so we tried it on one show, and after like 4 or 5 months, we decided, okay, we're having like kind of a green light from them, saying, okay, we could possibly start the next show also using USD. And as I said, we needed to make a cut also on the development team, because we cannot maintain two. So then we needed to just flip the switch, and that was basically in beginning of 2022, where we decided to go full on.
And you've been working on some projects during 2022. Have you finished any of those projects?
So the first project is finished. It's called The Last Voyage of the Demeter. I think it's a Dracula origin story, or what is that? So there's a trailer out already. It's really cool. Was a lot of ocean. I don't know if you want to say something about it.
No, go ahead. Just keep on talking.
And so Last Voyage of the Demeter, it is going to be in cinemas
August
4th,
I think, or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first USD project, and there was a TV show for Amazon called Der Greif, the Griffin or the Griff, I don't know, which was basically the second project we started with USD. After that, there's a project called Ghosted. This is for Apple TV Plus. The trailer, I think it's out today.
There will be a presentation about this today afternoon.
Correct. Shameless plug. Michael Wortmann.
Yeah, Michael Wortmann will be telling about this in König Karlhalle or Meilingersaal, wherever it is, in the big room. Yeah, exactly. And then currently all the shows are running on USD completely. Like, we don't use the old pipeline anymore at all. Come on. No, actually, this was just due to a delay in production and everything. Otherwise, we wouldn't use it, right? This is like one small thing with a few shots, and that's it. Other than that, like, the whole pipeline is running all on USD. Yeah.
So, but there was the question, like, as particular complex stuff, and this is also Ghosted. With Ghosted, we had a really interesting setup of the environment that the sequence plays in. It plays in a tower, which is a set. So that's usually not a problem. It's like you could handle it like a regular set extension. But the problem is that the story goes like at one point this tower starts collapsing and turning whatever. So now we needed to animate an entire set, everything in it, and then attach like DG doubles to a spinning set, and like this was really, really, really challenging. And I think with the old pipeline, we would have a hard time of managing all the animation caches and all that stuff. So it's yeah, but I must say, also with USD, this was not easy. It's because the other software has just like the bare bone USD implementation. So it's yeah, we figured it out, but yeah, you know, it was challenging.
Well, speaking of challenges, what challenges did you face integrating Solaris into your existing pipeline, and how did you overcome them?
Artist training, I would say.
Yeah.
I think this is challenging, and it still will be, of course, because usually you have to train people, right? Because this is quite new technology. I mean, the technology itself is not new, as Ollie described correctly, but the studios are like more and more switching over to it, but still it's new, right? And then you have a lot of people joining companies, switching from one company to the other, like freelancers running around. So you have to train people as well as freelancers as well as staff. And therefore, we have a dedicated USD training program with tons of videos. I think it's 50 or 60 of them by now. And Pipeline did a great job on this. Like Simon and Luca, they prepared everything. And for the first, I think it can take up to 2 weeks, this training, where we just pay people for being trained actually on USD, on using Solaris in Houdini, learning the concept, learning the workflows, learning all the tools. And then this is the first step so that they can start working on the show. And then along with the show, we still have these kind of very, very intense, like where we like still train the people on questions. We have Q&A sessions. We have updates, videos still. I'm doing a lot of videos right now, currently recording them. So we have still some learning process going on. It will never stop. But this is an in-house thing, which is very, I think, very unique also to Rise. But it's very important for us to train the people on the stuff itself. So yeah.
Yeah, the biggest challenge is just you have your artists going in like full steam on projects on the legacy pipeline, and then all of a sudden the next day they need to start working on an entirely new thing that they have never used before, and you cannot buy experience, right? Yeah. So also like you can train them however long you want, but if you have never worked on a project using Solaris and using USD, you just don't have the experience, and that's something that every studio that will now adopt to Solaris or USD will go through. It's I can tell you this is a hard. You're gonna have a hard time because artists, first of all, they are asking like, why do we need to relearn how we work? We know already like our workflow, all the workflows, and you're paying us a lot of money for our experience, and now you're taking the experience part away. So everybody starts from like square one. Nobody has experience in Solaris, and nobody knows USD. So, and this is kind of like something where I'm glad we're already kind of through with every single person at Rise that has at least gained experience over one project. This is so it's also for people working remotely, it's a bit tricky. So yeah, experience, like gaining experience is a big challenge.
So how standard or customized is your system? So if somebody knows Solaris and USD and they come to Rise, do they need to go through that course? Or is
yes. Yes, we have a lot of custom pipeline tools, of course. We have a lot of wrappers, like Rise wrappers around existing USD tools. There's some special things about our Rise pipeline regarding USD, but it's all based on the core of USD, of course. And yeah. And then what we also do is after these kind of trainings to get around these Rise pipeline tools, we are also doing some deep dive learning videos and tutorials for artists, because the first step is this what I just described, and then what Ollie said, like working on a show and then getting the ingredients, understanding the basic principles and working and producing stuff. And then there's a next level where we really go into like what are the core concepts? Like, what's the difference between primvars, attributes, properties? What is that all about? Like, really teaching the people on what is a layer break actually doing. So this is really then quite like deep, I would say, and really advanced, so to say, but it's very important. And we already can see that these we have these internal Q&A sessions where in the beginning, like we had, I don't know how many people, like 10, 15, 20 of them coming in and asking questions to pipeline. And now it's like almost empty all the time because everybody already like got used to it and just learned.
That's also good advice for everyone out there. Yeah. Like you have to provide a Q&A forum for your artists to your pipeline team on a regular basis. We had that once a week initially. Then we, once like many more people started on their first show, we ramped up to 2 times per week. It's just you can document as much as you want in your wiki and by video. It's always better to have a direct path to people, just to ask and get pointed to the resource like right away, so you don't have to look for it. People are sometimes also just lazy.
And so now they will have counter questions. Yeah. You explain something in the documentation, but they will ask back, and then you have to react.
That's also, we got great feedback or great questions from our artists that we haven't thought of before. So that's a very good feedback also for pipeline to see where we're not good or where we can do better.
Yeah. So we evaluated that also on a regular basis. So we did really a survey of what kind of concepts we need to introduce more or better or get better at. And then, of course, we react on that. So, yeah, that's all he said. Yeah.
So let's take a pause and see if there's any questions in the audience over there. Do we have a roaming mic? Because this is an open Q&A, so we'd love for you guys to participate in this as much as we are. So.
Hello.
Hello.
I have a question for the FX department. How much influences the whole Solaris pipeline or USD pipeline your department, basically?
It does a lot, basically, like more the I/O part regarding like the in-out from departments to departments. So it's more, like I said in the beginning, more streamlined. Other than that, I mean, you do your effects basically mostly still in SOPs, but then you write out your geometry or the caches, the FX caches basically, what you would usually do as Lambics or whatever, we write them out as USD and then insert them in the mainstream, which is the load shot basically, where all the other departments will come in the mainstream, and then you would just insert the FX caches into there. And then of course you have to override, edit attributes, properties, and mingle around and build your setup. So you have to understand what you're doing, because from after caching your simulation work or FX work over to LOPS, then you're completely in Solaris, in USD, so you would have to understand. And then, of course, all the rendering after that, all the look dev, lighting steps, and they are all completely USD. So, yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, of course.
On the layout and kind of scene assembly front, are you guys using like the layout tools, or are you using your own stuff? Like, what are you using to kind of build and dress large scale scenes?
It's a good question. So we mainly use, we are not using the layout node yet because of the way our assets are built at the moment. But we are like, was on the roadmap for, I don't know, a year already to implement support for the layout node. But we're not doing that. We're just using like regular referencing or the stage manager to populate our scenes initially, like for the set build. And of course, we're also doing set build in Maya. It's like, it depends what, if your artists are more proficient, or like for very complex sets, we'll all do everything in Houdini, of course, for the set assembly. But for less complex stuff, we also allow people to use Maya. But on the layout end, layout is all done in Houdini, no Maya. So,
Just shout.
the question was if we find the stage manager reliable, right? Reliable.
Yeah,
and-
stage manager like reliable and kind of a good environment to do that in, because we've had mixed results with that.
Yeah. So, to be completely honest, I'm not the user, so I have heard similar things. So people are not necessarily happy with the stage manager, but also if you don't use that and you just use reference nodes, you're
You show a million transforms.
yeah, you
which
just
is not
have a
win.
million of nodes. So it depends. So I think from a performance standpoint, using Stage Manager for very complex and sets is probably preferred. But again, we're looking in implementing the layout node with our assets, and I think this is probably the better way to go. So.
Any other questions over here? Over here.
Hello. So basically, did you guys run into the problem, because you said basically you mute your department layers for the actual right now department that's working on it. Did you run ever into the problem where, since the whole, everything is editable by every department, there's always a problem. It's very open. Everybody can change basically everything. And there's always this concept of, if there is a button to break things, it will be pressed by an artist.
We ran into this problem, yeah. So as you said, you cannot restrict who is messing around with every prim, right? So we had specifically in FX sometimes FX artists break stuff, but it's all just like that's an experience thing again, right? So you have to first of all define workflows. You have to document them. You also have to tell them, guys, hey, layout people, please do not de-instance stuff. This is not, you're not supposed to do that. And at least not 99% of the time. And because we ran into issues, like we have our internal pipeline support system, there's always tickets, like, why doesn't that work? And then you look into the scene because your layout artist has broken it. And it's like, it's hard to debug. Not hard, but it's always funny to see where people break stuff. And it's just about educating your artists on what to do and what not to do. Yeah.
So, because we had the discussion yesterday, if there is, for example, everything is perfect, render looks great, there's one tree, can you move it to the left? And then our lighting department was a bit like, great, so we will basically get layout nodes in lighting then. Or is that really like restricted to, okay, no, it really goes back to layouts?
It doesn't go back. That's the idea. It just comes in, updated. So it of course.
But you have to
goes
still
back.
restrict like the artists working on it, right? Because theoretically everyone
You
can
would
do
have
that.
to teach them to have that in mind, what the core principle is. And once you understood that, you are kind of leaning away from breaking stuff because you know that everything goes to the next department. So you start thinking about what you're doing actually. And then in the end, if it has to go back, it doesn't go back. It's just like you stand around that circle, which flows like a river, and then you just put stuff in and out.
I think the question is more like, do we allow the lighter to
Exactly.
change the stuff? Depends on the state of the show. So if it's delivery day, then yeah, sure, lighting can do that. But in most cases, we try to really just call layout, say, hey guys, can you please publish a new layout layer with this tree 2 meters to the right, and it's basically it doesn't really matter if the lighter is doing it or not, but yeah, it's complicated. Yeah, if you have to go through many departments, and as I said, if it's delivery day, then you just do it. Otherwise, even the production people know who to send that task or a note to, and it's usually should be done by the department that created the layout.
I mean, it's a new way of working, right? And so people need to learn what's okay and what's not. And the more collaborative and the more flexible and open something is, the more chance there is for somebody to be able to break something, but also that you need to communicate what's okay and what's not.
Yeah, that's also like one thing is, for example, with cameras, we always run into that because the camera is usually also messed with in layout and sometimes even in other departments. So camera transform changes or position changes, whatever, can happen in multiple places. And there's what gave us a little bit of a headache was Nuke on the Nuke end, because of course we now need also to use USD cameras in Nuke. And we were really happy to see that at least this is working in Nuke. Like you don't need 14. You can read USD files even in Nuke 13.0. And just the camera part, just like you have your camera node in Nuke, load the USD file, select the camera, that works. And we were really glad that worked because otherwise on one of the shows we're running right now, we would have a hard time tracking like all the camera positions and that stuff.
There was another question over there.
Hi. I have a workflow questions, and I was because we are starting to use also Solaris in my company, and since the very beginning with Solaris, you could already embed your SOP work and your DOP work within Solaris. And I was wondering if you are going for that just from a pure scene maintenance point as a workflow, so you are working directly inside Solaris in DOP and SOP, or you're still referring to SOP and DOP in the original context, basically. So how do you approach this?
You mean the FX part, for example, in DOPS?
Yeah, for example, the SideFX already provided some basic HDA to do some rigid body simulation directly in Solaris, and so you have your whole graph tree directly in Solaris, so you can either work there, which is still referring to SOP in a way. Yeah. It's just a different path. But, now with many artists working on the scene, sometimes it's hard when another artist opens up the scene to find the path where actually the setup exists, if in the original object level or directly in Solaris. So sometimes it can get confused. So I was wondering if you had any issues with that.
Usually not, because you would stay still in FX in SOPs or DOPS, and then SOP import your stuff into LOPS, right? Write out the USD caches and then just get them back and insert them in your LOPS tree.
Yeah, but you also have the possibility to directly have within the tree, not with the SOP import, just a subnet with all this.
But still, that refers to SOPs, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just for a pure workflow point of view. And I mean that it's the same thing, of course. It's just for the scene maintenance point of view, if you monitor that, if you let the artists do whatever they want in there.
No, I mean, we have sort of like templates where artists are used to work in, and then we have some internal...
They're for LOPS, right? So you have to drop them in LOPS.
Yeah, but still you would work in SOPs and DOPS directly, even if you SOP import them, right? You are in LOPS, of course, but you still work in SOPs. So, and we have templates and we have internal workflows established and standards that artists refer to. So everybody more or less uses the same principles, and everything gets outwritten from SOPs or DOPS, whatever it is, to a cache, a USD file, and this is going to be then imported back into LOPS. As for lighting, for example, in opposite is that they completely are in LOPS only. So they don't, unless they need some simple geometry or something. But other than that, they're completely in LOPS. But effects usually start still with SOPs.
Yeah.
So, and then you have the backtracking, which is part of your pipeline, which always gets then written out as a USD file, the stuff that you do from the work file. I don't know, explosion version 28, right? This gets out written as a USD file from SOPs usually, where you work on DOPS, and then it gets and if you push it, it gets written into the current shot file, which is then again a symlink to the latest updated shot file that you would write. And this would then load your shot. So again, it doesn't matter where you do it, it just comes in as a stream.
Yeah. Okay, just what to say. Thanks.
Hello. Given that USD is a pipeline shift workflow change, I was wondering, is there a way to implement checkout of your levels, your layer or prims, instead of only muting them, like source control, for example? Something that wouldn't allow others that are not from that department to work on that kind or ask for permission?
To be completely honest, I have no idea how to implement source control together with USD. I'm not sure if that, like, it probably would work, but I think we cannot answer that question right now.
But isn't it related to asset pinning? Like the
Yeah,
asset
but
result,
yeah, the
which
question was
always
about
goes
source
to-
control, and we're not using source control at right, so it's, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Over there.
Hi. I was just wondering if you guys have integrated like multi-shot into your pipeline with Solaris, or
Yeah,
if that's
we have,
planned.
yeah, there is like the Houdini context options that are like an integral part of Solaris, and we're relying heavily on that. So it's basically a turnkey solution already. So by just using context options, you have everything you need to do multi-shot workflows. So it's not rocket science.
Yeah. I just had another question. Like in terms of, because you got all of the people that can publish their different layers, how do you control the like dependencies in between like animation and like the caches that come from FX and all of that coming downstream, like whether it's matching or not?
You mean if the FX sim has used the latest animation to interact with, or?
Yeah, exactly. Like, how do you? Is there like a tool or a way in which you can monitor the dependencies of the caches?
Yes, we can. So, but in FX we're not. I think we're not at 100% dependency tracking, because once you sub import, you have a little bit of a break, more or less. You have to track whatever came in on the sub import node, and then when you write your stuff back, you have to somehow make that connection. So the answer is we do have full dependency tracking, but we are not using like USD itself to do that. We are using our asset management system, basically the internal version of ShotGrid from Rise. We're not using ShotGrid or FX, but we have a proprietary database. But yeah, that's what we use to track those dependencies. And we have a few tools built around this dependency tracking that allow you, for example, in RV, if you review a comp, basically, there's a tool, you open that up, then it looks up in the database which render layers have been used in that comp, and then on this render, so it's basically looking upstream, and on the render layer, there's information on which USD files and also the specific version of the USD file have been used, and on those USD files, you could just go to the beginning of time. So, yeah, this is how we control that, yeah, by giving people a user interface, more or less. Also, I think that's maybe also kind of related. Can you tell us a little bit about the pinning?
Yeah, this is what our asset resolver does basically. So you have versioning and pinning, where you would say, let's say, I don't know, we have 5 different versions of your thing, and you show them to the supervisor, and or 5 is the latest version, right? And then the supervisor says, no, I want to have version 3 approved. And then this one would get pinned, and pinned means this is the version even if you have higher versions above that. So you stay with that version even if it's still on version 3 rather than 5. And this would then be pushed into the shot file, which again is a link to the latest version of the shot files itself. So it references this version of your work file basically into the load chart stream, which then gets pushed to the next department.
Yeah, and also, I'm not sure if the question was also aiming in the direction of like making sure that an FX artist is always using the latest approved version. In our legacy pipeline, we were using a pull pipeline where the artists had to actively update their assets, which is obviously artists sometimes are scared to update if they see, oh, I have updates on 50 assets. Oh, I'd rather not update to break my stuff. But actually, you want them to update, so that's why with USD we moved to a hybrid. But by default, it's a push pipeline where everyone at every time is working on the latest approved versions. But with this pinning that Fuat just mentioned, you can, if you want, select other versions that you need. For example, like if you're working on a FX or on a certain effect, and all of a sudden you open your work file and you have an animation update and everything broke, then you can say, okay, dude, let's not use the latest animation, let's use the one before where the setup still worked. Maybe it was just a tiny change, and then just run the sim on the previous version. But this would be tracked then, like that it was not using the latest.
Yeah. But everything is tracked at all times, so you can go upstream. You have all the information, which work file published which version and pushed which version, so you always can go back and see in the down upstream your pipeline departments which version comes from where. So you always have that information in front of you. Yes.
One question I've got is, so you've been through this now. How's the company feeling?
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
People
it's
are
like,
happy?
there's a good metaphor, or like, do you remember when Apple removed USB ports? Like when it went full on USB-C, everybody was like punching and screaming, but Apple was just dragging them into the future, and that's basically what happened, right? It's like people were complaining, they had to adapt to a completely new workflow and everything, and now that everyone has went through their first project, everyone also sees the bigger picture and why we've done the switch. So yeah, we're mostly happy, I would say.
Nobody would want to go back. You can ask anybody. Like I'm quite sure, 99% of all people, they would not go back to any old pipeline anymore. And that's for I trying to be honest. I think so. Yeah.
And what do people like the most?
That's a good question. There's so many things we didn't have in the past, especially in set assembly and layout, that just adding those features would have taken us ages. It was just impossible to add what you get with USD for free, like layering, variants. That's a big thing, right? So variant sets and variants, that's something we always wanted because we never had model LODs, which is a shame, I know, but now you get this for free. You just need to set up some variants for the different LODs. That's good. Also, it's hard to say what they actually like and love, but I think the workflow just got a lot more streamlined, a little stricter also. That's probably something that people don't necessarily like, but for the entire show and for the bigger picture, being a little more strict is good, so that you don't end up with complete mayhem. So I think that's what I personally like.
Scalability.
Also, yeah.
Well, thank you both. Thank you for your questions, and really, really great to hear this. Great to hear that you're having such a great experience with it, and looking forward to seeing what's next.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.